It happened exactly 10 years ago today. It was a dark and stormy night. Well, actually here in Australia it was a bright and sunny spring afternoon when Team Fortress 2 suddenly dropped the highly unexpected Halloween update known as the Haunted Halloween Halloween Special, which was officially known as the terrifying Team Fortress Haunted Halloween Special. I was merely a 13-year-old stupid ugly little boy when this terrifying announcement first spread across my monitor like a beautiful banana spread. My face lit up with joy and then immense sorrow, as I soon realized that I couldn't play for a few days until the weekend, because I was... Random references aside, indeed the humble beginnings of the now actual for real 10 bloody year long tradition of Scream Fortress, of which at this point it wasn't even called that yet, began. Now I want to point out that back then these updates weren't really all that big, which hilariously enough they've somewhat reverted to in recent years. Regardless, this update featured only one page, unlike the usual 3 average, I think. But upon this hallowed webpage, the inscription read as thus: "Welcome, if you dare, to the first ever Team Fortress Haunted Halloween Special. 5 new update-specific achievements will unlock the mildly disturbing Halloween hats. Mouldering eldritch veils of such manifold depravity, the human eye will not process the sheer enormity of their malevolence, and out of self-preservation will merely show you paper bags with faces on them. These faces are still moderately scary though, so brace yourselves for mild terror." Now do not be alarmed, children, I studied spookish in high school and I will translate for you thusly. Essentially, this was the addition of the hat known as the mildly disturbing Halloween mask, which is not to be confused with the Halloween masks, which were added a year later. You see, the mildly disturbing Halloween mask was a single, all-class hat that, depending on who was wearing it, would feature a different picture. The Halloween masks were 10 different unique hats representing each class, and also Saxon Hale, that anyone could wear. So, as an example, you could wear the Pyro mask as any class and look like the Pyro, but the mildly disturbing Halloween mask would change with each class. Now, unnecessary confusion aside, you obtained this mask by achieving one of the brand new achievements, of which you had to collect 20 of these here pumpkin doohickeys. You know, the ones that give you guaranteed crits just for being in the right place at the right time? Very cool stuff. Very cool. Right now, you're doubtlessly thinking, "Please, Team Fortress, stop scaring me." Okay, we'll stop right... Haha! The scaring will continue! Prepare yourself for a new cough map called Harvest, created by Sean Heyo Coutinho. Crammed to bursting with horror by us, and... Look out! Dracula is behind you! Ha ha ha! If you scare that easily, this map will kill you. Yep, you heard right folks, Valve News Network's favourite map was added in this update. Both versions of it in fact, of which I will admit is actually one of my favourite maps in the game as well. Although I will say I wasn't actually aware that the non-spooky version was released until like a month later because well, I'm just kind of stupid, really. Also, hey, it's Sean Heyo Coutinho again. Nice. Our legal department tells us we can't mention this next horrifying feature because someone read it and got so scared we got in trouble. The entire TF2 team has to go to sensitivity training now because we inadvertently created such a scary work environment. So rest easy, we promise to stop scaring you. Right after we ignore our lawyers and tell you about the ghost haunting the Harvest map! That's right, the restless spirit of Zepheniah Mann will scare senseless players unlucky enough to cross his spectral path, rendering them temporarily helpless with fear. Now this was really cool. This was the first ever example of another living, or I guess post-living being in TF2. Even though all the ghost did was float around and do general ghostly things, it was still really cool to see. Now if the name Zepheniah Mann sounds familiar to you, that's because he was actually a super majorly important character in the TF2 lore. You see, there was 3 secret links on this page that allowed you to see the details of who he was and his overall importance in the Team Fortress verse. One of the secret pages being his last will and testimony, and the other being a family portrait of him presumably on his deathbed surrounded by those he trusted most, and also his sons. Essentially, Zepheniah was an extremely wealthy man who was convinced to buy large portions of the frontier of America by his sons, Blue Tarts and Redmond, and established Manco, if you couldn't have already guessed. On his way there to the Badlands he bought, he contracted literally every illness known to man and died shortly after. That is not a joke. In his last will, of which was created from his own skin, he detailed where his various possessions would go. First, to his maidservant Elizabeth, he left his estate, including all deeds, accounts, and debts, his tobacco plantation, and the remains of his fortune. Now, Elizabeth is a really interesting character, as she bears a striking resemblance to the administrator that we all know and love. And at the time, she was implied to have been an ancestor of hers. But due to newer information in both the comics, and funnily enough further information in the will that was revealed much later, implies there is much more to her than meets the eye. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. The second mentioned in the will was Barnabas Hale, whom was the ancestor of Saxon Hale, of which you can probably derive that indeed he inherited Manco. And to his proclaimed brain-dead sons, Blue Tarts and Redmond, he left all the land they convinced him to buy, or which they decided to share equally. Nah, just kidding, they fought to the bitter end over the useless land, thus creating the entire conflict of the red and blue teams in Team Fortress. Now there is a final entry that is covered up in this version of the will that was revealed much later, so I'll leave that until then. It should also be mentioned that Zepheniah was so salty he was dying that he swore that he would return as a ghost to haunt the living crap out of everyone who would use firearms near his grave. And thus, here he is as a spookly apparition bumbling around Harvest. Sorry to go full insert your favorite lore channel here, but I just thought it was cool to know that a random environmental hazard actually has some of the deepest lore in the game. So next time you see him, you can admire his work. And his hat. Speaking of which, you might recognize this here hat. No, actually, you do recognize it. If you play TF2 for more than an hour, you've either seen this hat or probably even own one yourself. As indeed, the free-to-play dome topper itself, the Ghastly Gibus, was added in this update. And this is what was featured on the final hidden page of the update, where, if you were lucky enough to be one of the first people to discover this page, you were treated to the hat for free. But of course, you all know that was not the only way to obtain this hat now, is it? As indicated by another of the new achievements, all you have to do is simply dominate another player wearing the hat to earn one of your own, of which at the time of release, as you can imagine, was spreading like wildfire, and still kinda is to this day. It should be noted, however, that at this point the Ghastly Gibus was just that, just this basic form. The other forms would come later during the next couple of Halloweens, but with all that out of the way, let's return to the update page. There are also pumpkins! That might not sound very scary initially, but get this, they explode! And most terrifyingly of all, the mangled corpses of the recently deceased will plague the living. With candy! Mwahaha! In retrospect, we probably should have put this stuff in the middle and ended with the ghost. Yeah, so pumpkin bombs were added here. Something that is present in almost, if not every Halloween map, of which, love them or hate them, they are now a staple of Halloween in Team Fortress 2. The pumpkin bombs also have an achievement related to them, and I might as well mention the other two, one of which was related to killing someone scared by Zepheniah, and the other, just killing a spy disguised as your current class. Which, like, I get it, but like, it's not really related to anything else on this page, so I'm gonna have to only give it 3 skeletons out of 10. Try better next time, pal. And that does it for the first ever TF2 Halloween update history. It didn't really add much in the grand scheme of things, but it did start the highly anticipated yearly tradition of Team Fortress 2 Halloween updates. One of the only things we can rely on these days. If even that. Now, we don't really celebrate Halloween here in Australia, as I actually detailed in this animated video I made last year. Plug. So this was and is my only real Halloween tradition that I have, and I have honored this for literally 10 years straight now. Good gravy. What I'm trying to say is that Scream Fortress actually means a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to you as well. Tell me, do you have any TF2 Halloween stories? Share them in the comments, why don't you? Now, a couple things I want to mention before I end this video. Firstly, yes, I am highly aware that I have actually skipped a TF2 update chronologically, namely the classless update, and I just want to say I will be getting around to it for the next update history. I just really wanted to make a Halloween video in time. Can you blame me? Also, kinda unrelated, but did you like my animation at the beginning of this video? I make a lot of them, and I also draw and write. I'm making a comic, in fact, called Cast the Psychopath, and have just started to release chapter 2 of it. If you're looking for something somewhat horror-y to read this Halloween, why not that? And no, before you ask, it does not cost anything. It's just something that I put a ton of work and love into, and it would honestly mean so much to me if you just checked it out, if it seems like it might attract your interest. Anyway, I have been Ihasnotomato. This has been the first ever TF2 Halloween update, and please remember to just chuck a couple of bananas under the bed for me before you go to bed tonight. Okay, thanks, bye.